A deal with Iran, oil prices falling, interest rates starting to move, bond markets are starting to work, and SpaceX looks like it's about to make another move up. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another beautiful day in real estate. Happy Monday. We have a great week starting off so far. We're going to jump into it. We're going to talk a little bit about it. Let's just jump into it. I'm not even going to start with anything weird today. So, bond prices fell off a cliff the other day or yesterday after the peace deal with Iran was announced and confirmed by Pakistan. Signing is set to be done June 19th. So we're good. It's a good way. I mean, we have 4 days away from something like this. Israel seems to have other opinions. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Interest rates are starting to fall again. And it's not something that happens where you see the war end, bond prices fall, and then Monday morning the mortgage rates fall. But it is very important. Something I don't talk about very significantly is, you guys, when it comes to interest rates on the national average, this mortgage news daily is not confirming what you're going to get when you go into a bank. This is a legit average across the board between brokerages, between banks. Just remember that interest rates factor in a couple of things. One, the bond pricing for the 10-year treasury, the loan or lender that you are going through, the loan you're getting through that lender, and the credibility that you have behind it. Now, I know it's one of those things where mortgages come into play for interest rates. Your credit score, how much money you're putting down, and essentially your debt to income ratio, right? So how much debt versus how much income do you have? Are you exceeding a certain amount? That's what factors into your loan. So just because it's at 6.5 across the board does not mean that's what you're getting. I'm seeing 5.9, 6.1, 6.2. It depends, right? With FHA and VA, they're at 6.14 and 6.16, and I've seen most loans are below that 6%. National average does not mean that's what you're going to get, but it is something that we pay attention to because interest rates are what everybody's talking about. Last year, I said it all the time. Interest rates are why people are not buying. Interest rates are why people are not buying. People are not buying because they did not feel comfortable. There was no certainty in the market. So to go out and make such a big investment, I was trying to kill a bird that didn't need to be killed, if that makes sense. So I sat around all year last year telling people interest rates are going to get better, so let's finance a house. But the reality is that people just wanted certainty. People wanted clarity. They wanted to understand that in 4, 5, 6 years from now, interest rates are not going to be at 10%. They're not going to fall. A lot of people wanted to wait because they wanted to see what was going to happen. But see, the thing is with interest rates is it is literally an afterthought if you break down the numbers. Yes, people still pay attention to them. Yes, it factors into your mortgage payment. But here's what people are not like. The thing is most people are waiting for 3% interest rates, or they don't acknowledge them at all. But it's always a conversation, right? What are interest rates at? I get that all the time. What are interest rates? What are interest rates? And I always tell them it depends, because it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're going to be in commercial, interest rates are going to be higher. If you're a first-time home buyer, they're going to be lower. If you're putting a substantial amount down on a mortgage, it's going to be lower, right? If you have terrible debt to income ratio, bad credit, things are going to be higher, right? So and people need to kind of get that through their heads that it's not always about the interest rate. All right, it's about who you use as a lender. It's about the product you're using. Are you using conventional FHA? Are you using a federally funded program, a state funded program? Are you putting 50% cash down? It depends, and you have to be in front of the right lender to really figure out what that means. Now, I'm off my soapbox. Let's talk about the fun part, which is that oil fell off a cliff this weekend. This is WTI crude oil on the daily, opening the doors at $79 a barrel. We were at $94 a barrel not even a week ago. Not even a week ago. Where were we? On Wednesday of last week. So 5 days ago, we were, wait, is that third? Oh God, I lied. That was 10 days ago, 12 days ago. Either way, within the last 2 weeks, we went from $95 a barrel to 97, all the way down to $79 a barrel. Now it is, we can all pretty much tell exactly why that's the case. Well, it's because Iran and the United States have reached a peace deal, according to President Trump, and also according to Pakistan has confirmed these alleged, this opportunity. That means that more people are starting to see the optimism in the market slightly. And what this means is what happens. Oil prices fall off a cliff. This is all Brent crude oil. It falls off a cliff and people get excited, right? People are getting ready. They're getting revved up because now if we see this kind of break below, we could head $71 a barrel again. We could get down to, we could end up in that $70 to $71 a barrel. I mean, hypothetically, the next major support's going to be right around that $81 a barrel for Brent. I think we should set something up here just so we have that mentality. Let's see. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yeah. You can tell there's a pretty significant spot right around here, $81 a barrel. So my guess is we're probably going to bounce off that for the Brent today. We had this trend line drawn last week. Again, kind of showcasing that the RSI has lost a lot of momentum over the last few weeks. It peaked at March 8th. So really at the beginning of the Pakistan war, or the Iran war, everything kind of peaked as far as like buy-in power. As you can kind of see too, most volume, littler volume, smaller volume, smaller volume, smaller volume, smaller volume, right? So we've continued to see a smaller volume over that course of the last 2 months. To me, it just makes sense, right? It's not even about the headlines. It's really just paying attention to the charts, and the charts are stating that it was time for this to happen. Really, let's be just honest here. And with the deal in Iran, I mean, there is some things that we'll break into in just a second here. We're going to finish the charts, then we'll go into the Iran war and the peace deal and just kind of go over that. But SpaceX is actually moving up pretty significantly this morning. Like I said, I'm hoping I eat crow on this, but I still am not bought into the SpaceX program yet. It is 3 separate companies that are new on the market. I think most people are still overhyping something to the justification tune that it's an Elon Musk run company. Just remember, you guys, the standard for most trades is when you open up, oops, I can't draw today, but you open up with a gap like this, you have to cover that gap. It doesn't mean it's going to happen before closing today, but there's a good chance it's going to pump up. It's going to have to re-eat this gap because there are orders in here that need to be filled. Excuse me. So I mean, again, I hope I'm wrong. I really do, but it sure looks like we'll see how today starts out, right? Because it peaked last week at 176 on Friday, Monday opening at 173. If it breaks above this 176, there's not a lot of data, right? There's not a lot of data. So we're going to have to go with the news story and the optimism. Yes, last week it closed at $2.1 trillion. Now, this is where I think people need to really dedicate a little bit of time, because the thing is I understand the excitement. Still getting over a cold here. Excuse me. But I understand the excitement because of the company, right? It is a company that's talking about space exploration, talking about Starlink, talking about AI benefits, talking about ships that can fly to and from and land and be repeatedly used, right? Something that's very new to our history. But the problem is, the thing that we're going to see is when a company comes out at $2.1 trillion in valuation and has no physical backing on the stock market, that's where the problem comes into play, right? Because yes, it's a good company. Yes, it's going to do great things over the next decade, but it's still new on the NASDAQ. It's still very new. For people to double their money from here, it has to go from $2.1 trillion to $4.2 trillion. And companies that don't have that much of an established presence on the market, I'm sorry, I keep getting sick here. This cough has been with me for like a month now. I got to get rid of it. But anyway, what you're going to see is, and what I'm expecting to see is happening here, and maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I don't know. But more than likely, especially with something of this valuation, is not going to see a 2x return in the next month. More than likely, it's going to go down and it's going to revalue itself lower. It's more realistic, and then the market will go from there. This may be a $10 trillion company over the next decade. Very, very, very plausible to say that, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it won't, but I'm saying it's early. And I think people are still very optimistic about something that has not provided. My God, this is going to really annoy the crap out of me. But I think most people are still optimistic for something that really hasn't proven that it's meant to be here yet, if that makes sense. I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for it. It is what it is. I mean, I get it, but pay close attention, right? With the next couple of weeks, I'm interested to see where SpaceX is, and we'll continue to cover it because I really want to see what happens. But no, the bigger news today that I'm really excited about is that bond prices are looking a little bit better. Finally, all right, bond prices, they made a nice little fall over the last couple days. Green is yellow in this situation. Blue is red. I should probably use green and red when I'm doing these videos, but whatever. It is what it is. It is bouncing off that support at 4.43% currently. My guess is we'll more than likely break below that, and then we'll find ourselves down at 4.32 over the next couple weeks. This is a very strong support, so it is one of those things. And at the end here, I do have one piece here. We'll talk about the bond market, but the Iran war peace deal comes out, and then bond prices fall. It means people are growing confidence in the bond market, right? When we're in a war, there's a lot less certainty behind it. But again, think about this. Like, there's a couple of things to point out. Bond market's starting to fall, which means what? Means that Bitcoin is making its run now. Bitcoin is starting to make its bounce. It found its nice little bottom down here at around 58,000. What was the bottom? Bottom was right at here. What, 59K? It's kind of a major double bottom if you look at it from that perspective. I mean, we're talking about a big move down, bounce up, big move down, and then we could actually see the next move, and it might be a pretty juicy one from what it's looking like. It came very strong, very big V-shaped pattern almost. I mean, there's a little bit of, there's a little volatility here, but it's taken off pretty significantly. Why? Again, because it has to do with the war in Iran, right? So what happens is when you have peace deal like this, it just means that people are ready for a little more risk on assets, right? Risk on, because meaning that people are more willing to take risk because there's not uncertainty in the market as of right now. It could change tomorrow, it could change in a week from now, but investors today, they see a lot more certainty behind it. So what people are doing is now they're buying into these risk on assets. Oil is no longer a strong product right now because oil was the whole reason it was up is because of the Iran war and Strait of Hormuz. The first oil tanker passed through this morning, I think is what it was, or last night. But it means that we're starting to see an optimism grow, and that is good. Again, you guys, it is June. When are midterms? November. What did I say was going to happen? That things are going to start looking better towards November. Now, we still have a few months. More than likely, we're going to see some bouncing. We're going to see a little bit of, volatility up and down. But I still think, and I'm pretty confident that by midterms this year, we're more than likely going to have a very positive view on the market across the board. And that's just something that we're going to be continuing to pay attention to. Now, we talked bond prices. Let's talk about the S&P. The S&P had a beautiful jump, you guys. Look at this beautiful jump. Again, we have a nice little gap on here, which again always makes me a little bit concerned because we never filled this gap yet, and now it's starting to bounce again here. Like I said, it's not always going to fill the gap. I know that most times the gap needs to be filled. But anyways, we opened pretty significantly this morning. What did we open at? We opened at 7,015 fives, and it closed at 7,004 last week. So I mean, just right out the gate, we had a major influx of cash get pushed in the market. We're up almost 1.5% on the S&P 500. Like we kind of talked about, more than likely we were going to see a bounce and we were going to see a vertical shape up. Just because it's moving doesn't mean it's not going to come down, right? It's going to come down and go back up, right? The war in Iran ends and the stock market bounces, right? That's the juiciness of it. That's what makes it looks good. But let's talk a little bit about the Iran war and what to expect. So this was released. Prime Minister releases its official statement, and we're going to read it out loud just because we're here, right? The peace deal between the United States and Iran, which Pakistan announces has now been reached. So not just Trump coming out and saying we've almost reached a deal. No, the Pakistan, who has been negotiating this and been acting as an intermediary, is now saying that we have officially reached a deal. Following intensive talks, we are pleased to announce that the peace deal between the United States and America and Islamic Republic of Iran have been reached. Both sides have declared that the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. And then just so everybody knows, Israel actually had an attack, I believe last night, or was it Saturday? Kind of insane to see, but the official signing ceremony will be February 19th in Switzerland. I love the neutrality because Switzerland has always been more of a neutral place. But anyways, we would like to thank the United States and American Islamic Republic of Iran for their commitment to finding diplomatic solution to the conflict. We would also like to extend our sincere appreciation to our brothers in the mediation effort, the great leadership state of Qatar, for their support in reaching this agreement. I will also especially thank the visionary leadership of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Republic of Turkey for the immense contributions in this regard. With the agreement now in place, mediators will facilitate a series of meetings this week. These implementation discussions will lay the foundation for the technical talks over the official, and the official signing ceremony. So we're this close. I mean, like it is not official. It's there, but it's not necessarily official, right? But we are seeing the end of the war. And with the end of the war in place, companies and countries are going to feel more confident with oil moving through. There's going to be more efficiency. There's not going to be a supply chain disruption again. There's a lot of things that actually were hinging on this war in Iran. And now that we've reached that point of potentially it being over, you're going to see a lot more confidence in the market. You're going to see the market bounce. You're going to see risk on assets being, taken into advantage. I didn't even think about it, but let's look at gold real quick. I'm curious to see where gold's sitting this morning. Yep, gold's up 3% this morning with a nice V-shaped bottom, and silver is up 5% almost as well. Look at that. Holy, my God. All right, well, I should have been paying attention to silver last week and bought some, but yeah, it is what it is. All the way down to $63 an ounce, and now we're kind of bouncing from there. Now, I'm kind of curious. How does this look? No, we're not quite there. Never mind. I lied. Don't even pay attention to that. All right, let's jump back into it, guys. So anyways, here are the terms for the Iran-US deal, okay? Number one, exceeds ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran for 60 more days. Begins a 60-day negotiation period for technical discussions around Iran's nuclear program. That was a big problem for a long time, as they were saying that Iran had to remove its nuclear program as a whole. It sounds like they'll be able to keep it. They're just not going to be able to develop weapons, which we'll revisit in 5 to 10 years when they find out that they continue to build weapons, but that's a different conversation for another day. Removes the U.S. naval blockade and reopens the Strait of Hormuz. That's going to be exciting stuff there. U.S. will commit to discuss sanction relief with Iran. U.S. will commit to discuss the release of frozen Iranian assets. I think there's 24 billion, and they were talking about releasing 12 at the beginning of this peace deal and releasing all 24 billion by the end of talks, as long as things continue. U.S. will commit to discuss the release of frozen assets. We talked about that. Peace deal includes permanent end to fighting on all fronts, including Lebanon, and then the final agreement to be signed June 19th in Switzerland. We expect to receive more detail on terms shortly. So this was posted yesterday afternoon. Something I always find interesting is that there's always a synchronicity across the board, and I think it's kind of crazy that the big 250 birthday UFC event on the White House on the White House lawn happens the same day that we reach a peace deal with one of the biggest adversaries we've had for the last 3 decades. I'm not saying that it was all supposed to be like that, but the synchronicity is kind of ironic. I mean, to be honest with you, right? Like, let's be real here. Anyhow, so we saw $900 billion come into the stock market today just because of this deal. Set to add $900 billion after the U.S. and Iran announced a peace deal. The index is now up 1.2%, a new record high. Perfect. All right, let's jump back into that for a short second. I want to go back to the original. There we go. Let's go down here. S&P 500. We are almost reaching all-time highs already today, and it is Monday morning at 8:43. I think we're going to see some good stuff happening at the end of this year. I keep talking about the Iran deal because there's more and more news that's going to be coming out. We'll talk about more of it tomorrow. Pakistan's prime minister announces that the U.S. and Iran has officially reached a peace deal, and officially signing will take place June 19th in Switzerland. Both sides have declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. So again, this is the same as that Kobayashi letter from just an hour earlier from yesterday's conversation, but this is good. This is really good, you guys. This is something that we needed. Things seemed very grim for the last couple months. I mean, since the beginning of March. I mean, to be fair, March, April, May, halfway through June, we're 3.5 months into a war. And if we can actually see the ending to it and see an ally come out of it, that's pretty significant over the last 3.5 months. So, but the last thing I'm going to touch on, because we're running a little short on time, is look at this. So the global bond yields are crashing. The 10-year U.S. Treasury bond has dropped from 4.68 to 4.42 in the last 27 days. The U.S. 20-year has fallen from 5.21 to 4.92 in the same period. That's a pretty big move in the bond market. A lot of people don't really, I think we're numb to not seeing double digits. But I mean, when you're talking about a bond market, it's a very, very, very concentrated market. So to see something like that, billions and billions of dollars have to be moving in and out. Like, that's what's crazy, and I don't think a lot of people really understand. But remember, the Fed is also now artificially buying those bonds. They are creating money and buying those bonds, and those bonds, which is called quantitative easing, but now no longer called quantitative easing because they changed the name to make it sound a little better. Kind of like when Biden was in office and they said that they changed the parameters of what inflation are like. They're going to do the same thing with Kevin Warsh. He speaks on Wednesday. That's going to be an interesting day because we're really going to see the mentality of what the next 4 years are going to look like in the Federal Reserve. But Japan is moving even harder. The Japanese 10-year yield is down 8.97% in 27 days, and the 20-year down 9.5%. That's the big moves that we're talking about today. When bond yields fall, it means bond prices are rising. Money is flowing into bonds across the U.S. and Japan at the same time. This is not a common market condition. Lower U.S. long end yields reduce borrowing costs for governments, corporations, and consumers without the Fed cutting a single rate. This is actually a very important discussion because what happens when companies, corporations, and countries can borrow money for little? When money is cheap, what happens? Growth happens. Lots of growth. Lots of big corporations are moving to the United States, building facilities, creating jobs. Maybe there's going to be more movement now that interest rates are starting to fall. This is important stuff. If we can see a continuance going down and money continues to get cheaper, the economy is going to tear. We're going to see growth. People are going to feel more confident. And again, let's not forget the fact what happens in November, midterms, right? And in order to keep the seats at midterms, you have to have a good place where people feel comfortable, confident, and ready to vote for that side of the table once again. So what makes this more significant is the timing. The BOJ expected to hike rates tomorrow to 1%, the biggest level in 30 years. Japanese bond yields are supposed to rise ahead of the rate hike after they are falling instead. The bond market is moving the opposite direction of what the BOJ is about to do tomorrow. So they were supposed to raise rates tomorrow. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But this might be the first kind of plateau because Japan has been raising interest rates significantly for the last 6 months. It went from basically 0 up to over a full percent. And you know what? I kind of want to see what the 10-year Japanese bonds are. Let's do this real quick. If I could learn how to type, we'd be there already. It's been a morning, you guys. It's been a morning. If I could pay attention. Anyways, you know what? Let's just make that a conversation for tomorrow because we have ran out of time. So anyways, long story short, optimism is looking great today. Let's see what happens over the next 48 hours, and we will kind of continue to keep you educated and on top of things. Have a great day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.